Muso started very simply just trying to make a list of my bands on an Excel sheet, and there was maybe about 30 bands altogether. And I realised that, I could share this list with my friends who were also in these bands. When I done that, I realised that, okay, I should also include the other bands that they were in. That would be fair, so it's not just about me. And then I realised, okay, now I'm going to have to document every band in Athlone. 2.5 years. Mind and Dad, in isolation. And then once I'd done that, I realised that some of the musicians didn't stay in Athlone. Some of them went over to America, went over to London, Dublin, Galway. So I started documenting bands from the rest of the country. That got hard because then there was up to about 8,000-9,000 bands. There was other websites there, like the Encyclopedia Metallum, you know that? Yeah. There's like 60,000 metal bands there. When I noticed that there was other archives, I also noticed that there was a lot of bands that were missing, that didn't have a place on the metal archive or the trad archive, or like all the bands that I used to play in, that didn't fit into the certain genre. I was in a lot of bands, maybe too many bands. I started playing in bands when I was maybe 14. And bands is something that keeps happening. So that's my granddad, probably over 100 years ago. No, 80, 90 years ago. That's my granddad in his band, playing his piano. And he taught me piano when I was about 3 or 4. And he was the guy who basically said, just play, Your right hand goes ding, da ding, da ding, and your left hand goes boom, 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 boom. And it was as simple as that. And that's what I tell my nieces, nephews now, just play. So I opened the website up to including every band in every genre, which again was a bit messy, so I had to find a better way to organize it. And so I thought of geolocating everything. Bands and musicians do really come from certain places. Like, there was like 250 bands from my small town of Athlone alone. Now we're going over towards the far side of Athlone. And the far side is whatever is the other side. So I live on the far side, but now I'm going to the other far side. I started adding coordinates basically to every record, to every band and every musician and the venues and the promoters. I'm only learning this stuff as I'm going along, and I'm downloading plugins and experimenting. I set up this app so that on your mobile you could click a button and see what was the music around you. And once I figured this out, I was like, at a kind of bombshell moment. It's like, this is working. And I tested it, and it was working anywhere in the country, and I was testing it was working all around the world. I was like, now I can add in everything into this site if I want, because it's only the relevant information will go to the people at the relevant places on the relevant time. It wasn't an idea, it was necessity that just kept moving on and finding different ways to overcome the next problem. And I had a long time I didn't tell anyone about this project because it was like, no one's going to understand it. They're going to be upset that I'm putting their music up online here. And part of the website I added in was that people could, become a registered user and comment on different pages and posts and that. It took 2 years before one person signed up, so the website was on the internet and nobody was looking at it, And I was working on it all day, every day, like 4 or 5 hours. I was getting up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, looking up bands, seeing who played in that band, where bands did they play and what music they came from. A few months ago, it was like, bing, your website has a new user. I was like, okay. And next thing, bing, 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 more users coming on. And I didn't know why people were signing up, really, you know, whatever. But then they started commenting on different posts, you know, and the random, like, bands and musicians that I never heard of in my life, you know, that they were up on my site, you know, but I thought they were, you know, side players, and people would be commenting on their page saying, do you know how important this person was? Like, you know, it's so great to see that this person's being acknowledged on this site. Like, everyone knows the famous bands. You have your U2 and your Thin Lizzy, but some of those bands, they overshadowed a lot of other smaller bands that were equally as beautiful and amazing. I found this guy a while back, Ernie Graham. It's beautiful, beautiful music. And Ernie, he ended up working, I think, with the railway company. And, you know, he died young. And I remember the day I found Ernie Graham's music, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I put it on the website, and I posted the page somewhere. And next thing, Ernie's brother, Jackie, commented on it. I says, you know, that's my brother, like, you know. I played in a big jazz band in that hotel. It's closed now. They used to have a porta cabin right there. And the priests had no problem with us going in and playing music all day, every day. And we done that for a long time. And we annoyed every neighbour in this place. So my grandfather and my uncle and a lot of other people would have played in that building right over there, which was called the Crescent Ballroom. Back in the time when Ireland was full of ballrooms. People like, you know, like Eric Bell, you know, do you know Eric Bell? Like, everyone knows, like, Thin Lizzy and Van Morrison and stuff. Eric Bell got all those bands together, you know? The huge bands would never have existed without these guys. As people are starting to rediscover these old bands and, you know, remember all the bands that they were listening to, that maybe some of the bands might start reforming, or, you know, get a few reunions, or record some albums that were meant to be recorded. And some reunions have been happening, which the one thing I'd love to see is the people that gave up music for whatever reason it was, you know. I would love to see some of those go back and play music again, causing trouble again, and getting up to mischief again, because that's the fun part of life, you know. Start a band, organise a gig, get everyone to go. Yeah, I get some really beautiful messages every now and again. When someone goes on the site and then they start seeing the bands that they were in, and, you know, the photos. I get a lot of people from, you know, who were in bands in the 60s and the 70s, and some of these people are like getting on now. A lot have passed on, you know. And when I get a message from someone who's, you know, in their 80s, they suddenly see that the music they done when they were 20 is like popular again. That's a really beautiful thing. Like, I could see the day that someone's walking down the street with their augmented glasses and they can just switch on the Muso layer and see all the venues, all the places, all the musicians, bands that used to be in that area. You know, so you could walk down the middle of your street that you grew up and you could see the musicians from all the generations, you know, where they would have existed or maybe still exist. Virtual reality, I'd like to recreate venues, you know, recreate gigs and concerts, you know. Let people revisit them, you know, go into a nursing home with a bunch of VR devices and bring them back to the ballrooms. Why not, you know? And I'd like to keep putting on pressure on bands to quit their jobs, get divorces, leave their families, and get back into the sheds, get back writing music, putting on gigs. Because we're in the future now, you know? We're not in the apocalypse anymore, you know? We have no excuses not to be out enjoying music again. And we have a lot of technology now, too. So we can use that technology to make things happen.